Welcome back from the first break of the day at the Texylvania's Impact stage. As a short overview of what's next, Andres Cher and Nick Fryer will lead us into building resilience, and Aviran Mordo will continue with operation models until we break for lunch. So we have two panels coming up. Now, I'm happy to invite to the stage for a conversation about building always-on resilience through multi-cloud two esteemed speakers. First, we have Andres Cher, a London-based partner at Fraser Finance, an advisor to tech companies and their investors on strategic initiatives, and an investor in European early and growth stage ventures, and joined by Nick Fryer, Chief Technical Officer at Dojo, a UK-founded omni-channel payment processing solution aiming to turn transactions into meaningful relationships. We can't wait for that. Let's welcome them to the stage with a warm applause.
Thank you. Thank you, Elena.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we should start it slightly differently. Who here thinks, and only wrong answers, please, who here thinks that money is the most important thing in the world? Good. Who thinks payments are not important? Good. All right. After suitably confusing you, I want to introduce you, Nick,
Hello.
who oversees 6 to 9 million payments every single day, and who runs a team of 450 tech, product, and design people out of London. And he's the CTO of Dojo. And with that, I will ask him, why did you build Dojo?
Thank you, Andreas. Thanks for that. Welcome to the Impact stage, people. Thank you for taking a risk on the Impact stage. I shall try to be impactful. No promises, but I shall do my best. No booing, though, if I'm not impactful. Anyway, so to understand a bit more about Dojo, so for those who don't know Dojo, we're a very new product in a slightly older business. So we've only been live about 2 years, and we've now, as Andreas said, we process between 6 and 10 million payments a day, and that accounts for about 10% of the face-to-face, the in-person payments in the UK. So we've kind of done that. But to understand why we did it, if you care, you have to sort of understand some of the past. So when we were founded in 2010, if you wanted to take a face-to-face payment in your pub or restaurant, you would go to your corporate bank, like Barclays or Lloyds, and they would put you through a 2-month torturous application process, might give you a terminal, it would be on horrible rates, and the service was horrific. And that kind of, and there was only, you could go to another high street bank, you got exactly the same experience. So that kind of led to the birth of what's called an ISO in the payment industry. That is, a sales business takes exactly the same product, but just does a better job of selling it, makes it a bit cheaper, and provides some service. And that's what Payment Sense was, and we did a brilliant job of it. So we did it for about 8 years. Not, I'm saying brilliant, it wasn't me, it was others. But we took this same product, but we rolled it out to around 10% of the UK market over a space of 10 years, just by building really, really effective distribution. So we had self-employed field salespeople, about 500 of them, all very, very motivated to talk people into taking our payments over WorldPay or Elevon or Barclaycard, whatever their resident one was. So in about 2019, our revenues were somewhere around £100 million. We have about a 30% EBITDA margin. So by kind of any measure, it's a good fintech. Anybody with their own right mind would sell up and go and move to the Bahamas or somewhere and go to start a diving school. But I wasn't allowed. So we got bored and we tried, so we thought, well, how can we fix it? So we looked at face-to-face payments, and everyone was telling me, and Jenico was telling me, first day to everyone, that it's just a commodity. Beep, you get paid, what can you do? But we also knew it wasn't. So transaction speeds were super slow, the bills were horrific. As a customer of ours, it could take up to 5 days to get your money. It goes on and on. There was lots of things. PCI DSS, if anyone was unfortunate enough to come across the security standards in payments, is an absolute misery. If you sell to a pub, they have to have an information security policy. It's ridiculous. And do things like testing, security testing in their pub. So we took this and we said, well, this isn't good enough. We want to solve all these problems. And then when we started looking at how, we looked at all the incumbent systems that are all still based on mainframes or giant AS400s or whatever they were doing, but they were really old, hadn't really changed since the 90s, and were still working, but were almost impossible to change. So it kind of snowballed, and we ended up building it all ourselves. So we got regulated by the FCA as an EMI. We joined Visa and MasterCard. And we set about, very naively, a tiny slice of arrogance, not a great thing, but we just went ahead and did it after everyone told us it was too difficult, and built it all ourselves with engineering teams that have never done anything like this before. They came from completely different backgrounds. We hired no one from the industry, and we built it all from scratch. And because we took a very product-led, we believe our product is our strength in our business, not the fact that we can sell or service as the product, and we targeted it big style at solving these customer problems that everyone else had dismissed. With the same sales team, when we properly launched it in April 21, we were selling the old system. We sold about 2,500 businesses a month, and we scaled that to about 8,000 pretty much overnight with the same sales team. So actually taking the customer's view into account,
give us a few examples of how the customer kind of experience improved from T+5 getting paid, or getting the sign-up process and stuff like that. What did you guys actually do to make that kind of all of that experience easier?
Well, the customer doesn't care that Visa only pay the acquirer on business days. They don't care about that. So we worked with some banking partners to mean we could pre-fund, and we pay at 10 a.m. every day, even on a Sunday. So if you process on a Saturday, you get paid at 10 a.m. on a Sunday. It's in your bank account. We're actually moving them back to 9 and 8 a.m. And that's Christmas Day, you get paid. And no one else does that. But it's doable, but we had to take that customer desire to do that. So say PCI DSS we provided the most secure version of PCI that's called point-to-point encryption, but you can now attest PCI compliance by saying you've read 2 short documents and saying attest. That is completely different. So we took this pain away from the customer, and it's proved kind of popular.
I'm gonna ask you a CTO question now. How did you do the architecture? How did you build up the foundation for this in terms of the actual tech? And talking about resilience, which was kind of
that was the subject that we changed halfway through. But I shall try and talk about some of that. So, so the problem with payments is, especially face-to-face payments, it has to always work. It kind of has to always work. You talk about 4 nines, 5 nines, you really need as close to 100% as you can. So if you imagine a central London pub, we do loads of pubs, thousands of pubs. On a Friday night, the bar's 5, 6 deep, and the system goes down. In fact, this kind of happened in the very early days. They just have to give the booze away. This is not a good thing. It's a good thing for the punters, free Stella. The football hooligans love it. But it's not a good thing for the business to have to give it away, and it's then not a good thing for us. So one of the key things is resilience, and that sort of comes onto the multi-cloud thing. But generally, we built our platform using modern software engineering techniques because the team were modern software engineers. They weren't payment software people. They were modern engineers. They knew to build microservices using platform services on the cloud. Don't go and hand roll a SQL server. Use Cloud Spanner on Google or Dynamo on AWS or even Oracle Autonomous, but something completely managed. We use containerization or serverless where it makes sense. So we don't do anything particularly groundbreaking for software engineering, but it is for payments. Payments is all running on mainframes or batch systems that make moving data around very, very difficult. So we built a modern software stack that is not unusual in the software industry, but it's just unusual in a payments context.
Yeah.
And then we host our critical services live, active across multiple cloud regions, across multiple cloud providers. One of the learnings we had the hard way with my pub giving away booze example was you can't trust cloud providers, even the giant ones, even multi-region. You can't trust them. You can trust them to an extent, but if you need 100% uptime or as close to 100 as you can possibly get, you have to work actively. Not in a DR scenario, you have to work actively with multiple cloud providers, otherwise you are going to have outages.
Yeah. And so you developed that sort of infrastructure down below, and then you mentioned you then have a framework where you have microservices for the product. As you were developing the product, it's a collection of microservices that you've developed. And talk a bit about that, because that also links then into how you ran your teams and how you set up your big team, essentially.
So as a business, we've always been big on autonomy. So our two founders, and really the culture is always set at the top. I'm sure everyone sees this. If you don't have a good culture at the very top, you don't really stand a chance. But they've always given us the kind of white space to do our thing, and it's always filtered down. But on an engineering perspective or a product team perspective, if the system isn't architected in a way that supports that, you can't really do it. So with microservices, we have about 2,000-ish that make up the entire system, but a number of those will be grouped into some particular functional area. It might be the settlement subsystem or the billing or authorization or whatever it might be. And you assemble an autonomous team of multidiscipline product people, data people, designers, whatever they may be, lots of software engineers, to look after that set of services. The dependencies are very low between those services. There are some, but they're all through messaging as opposed to kind of tight dependencies at a database layer. And so they can release when they want to. They can do what they want. And
How
so
many releases do you do, sort of, on average?
It varies a lot, but more than 50 a week. Regularly several hundred a week.
Yeah.
Where if you're talking a traditional monolithic payments platform, you're typically looking at once a quarter. Because it's so bloody complicated and there's so many interdependencies, the integration testing and testing to get even a tiny change out can take weeks. So they just don't do it. I feel sorry for them. I'm not having a go at them. It must be horrible. And again, we were just lucky-ish that we built at the time that we did, where the modern software stack was there for us to exploit.
And so how does that, in terms of organization and in terms of, cultural, the culture that you're setting, how do people experience that in your teams? How does that filter down in terms of organization, their tribes and
yeah, so we loosely follow, lots of people do, except Spotify, the Spotify tribes and squad models. So a squad will be no more than about 8 people. But that squad is completely responsible for that area. So even though they have management above them, there's no top-down, thou shalt, JFDI kind of work. There's none of that. It's a product team working with their customers to work out how to make their part of that product better and better. And we iterate relentlessly on this. And so it's something that is really powerful. It breeds a lot of ownership, and it breeds a lot of... Oftentimes, one of the problems we have is too much hard work. It sounds like a boo-hoo, but it's like people just work too much and end up burning out. And sometimes we have people wanting to leave because they just work, because the ownership becomes too much. In fact, we overdid that, really, and we ended up some of the decision-making being too low level without enough context, so we had to kind of course-correct a little bit. With some things, we have to give them a bit of a steer. But it's kind of from a good place, and it kind of works overall.
And so what's next now? So now you've conquered, or you are in the process of rolling up the UK market, which is, I think, the second largest payments market in the world. What's next in terms of product, in terms of expansion, etc.?
So we've grown very fast in the UK, but there's only so far you can go, because there's only so many pubs, so many restaurants, so many retail establishments. So we're going to take that product and we're going to roll it out to start with Western Europe. We have plans for 2 countries this year. Our beloved Brexit, who loves a Brexit? No one, weird, is kind of hampered us a little bit because our FCA passporting was taken away from us, but we are very close to fixing that with another EU-based regulator. And so we will roll that out into Europe. Where the UK is a very, very competitive card market. There's lots of all the best players, Stripe, Adyen, they're all there. It's less competitive in Western Europe, so we're hoping that we'll do okay, but there's that arrogance again. So that's one of the plans. We're also looking at the US as well, see if we can find a product with some product market fit and going there. But beyond that, we did what we call Dojo V1, that was really taking all those stupid things of a traditional payment system like slow payouts, cripplingly slow authorizations, stupid bills that no one could understand, and fixing those. But it's still a basic product, really. And then we're going to try and build on that and make it something that people can't do without long term. So one of the key things our customers want, if you ask them, what can we do for you? One of the key things is give me more customers, drive more business. So we have a consumer app, has about 500,000 active users, so it's getting traction already, mostly in London, where you can queue or book for restaurants. And then that then drives people into those Dojo customers. And so we're working on making that much more widespread. The network effect, the more restaurants we get on there, the more people will start using that to book their restaurants and move outside of London. And then ultimately that journey can be taken through to actually ordering and potentially paying through that journey as well, to then mean that you don't have to please have the bill, all that kind of stuff, to sort of improve the cardholder experience. We've got lots of other plans. We need to keep iterating on our V1 as well to make sure that it's always better than everyone else's, because, you know, people will catch us up.
The obligatory question, how is this whole AI hype and Gen AI and everything, how is that going to impact or influence you guys?
Yeah, thanks. Are we all sick of it yet? Yes. So we've jumped on a few bandwagons, because you've got to, otherwise I look stupid. So we use GitHub Copilot a lot, actually. That wasn't anything to do with me. The team just picked that up, and it's really good, actually. It is great. And we use Whisper AI, that's part of the OpenAI's stack, to do voice recognition on our customer service calls. We're very big on service, so we don't really have IVRs or that. We have a team of people in Bristol that take our customers' calls. But one of the things they'd have to do at the end of every call is summarize what the call was about. But now we're using Whisper AI that's kind of next level speech recognition to pick out the key phrases and come up with a summary, automatic. Yeah. And so the agent now just checks the summary. Normally it's close enough, hits OK, as opposed to it's saving about 3 minutes a call on average. So that's working. We're looking at, there's the obvious things about things like bots for our customer service to try and answer questions. We've not really gone down that route yet. There's probably somewhere. But the other one is pricing. Pricing's really big in our industry. A couple of bips on the price, suddenly we make loads of money. But at some point, customers start fleeing. So it's really sensitive where you price. So we've got lots of data from previous price rises where we can see where customers left or where they stayed. So we're looking at that as a way of really cleverly trying to monetize our product to get the best out of it. That's where we see the best benefit
and
for us.
Dynamic pricing? Is that
no, I don't like dynamic pricing.
When the pub is busy,
it's
let's increase the prices a bit.
It's evil. It's evil.
Good. I think, one more question I wanted to ask you about kind of offline, online. Where do you see that going? Obviously, during pandemic, the card payments have gone up massively. How is that sort of, what's the future?
Well, the pandemic was terrifying for us because they shut all of the places that we operate overnight. So our transaction volume went down by like 80%, virtually immediately. All of our revenues had a similar impact. But when it started coming back, the cash to card swing in places that didn't typically take cards before. Weirdly, fish and chip shops in the UK never took cards. Now they all do, and that's really given us a massive tailwind. But in terms of the online, offline, we saw a big push to online payments within physical places, like the QR code payment within restaurants. That went massive. Again, it was the contactless thing. It's backed off a lot. You'll see a lot of the performance from those e-commerce players like Stripe and Checkout and Molly. They've taken a hit because it's kind of gone back to normal, but it's still there in some places. We offer that as well. We just want to offer any way that a customer wants to pay. We want to offer that payment, so not necessarily favour one or the other. Just make sure that we can process the payment the way the end customer wants to pay.
Awesome. I'm going to open the floor for 5 more minutes of questions, Q&A, if anybody has any. Please, right here in the front, the lady.
How do you think the quantum technology will impact the security of the payment systems?
Yeah, so security is a kind of a big deal. Anything, I talked about PCI DSS, but that's more of an end customer view of security. We have a CISO with a team of about 10 or 12 security engineers. So we do all sorts of automated work. We use Sneak. I don't know, I think there's someone from Sneak here. We use that on our CI/CD pipeline to make sure we're checking for some of the more obvious stuff. We use a lot of stuff around the cloud providers are pretty good in reality. So we make use of things like their anti-DDoS protection. That's been good so far. I need to find some wood to touch after saying that because that's asking for trouble. A little bit superstitious when it comes to
Romania
things
is a
like
big
that.
hacker country, so
Yeah,
careful
yeah.
what
So
you
I don't
say.
want to give it. Someone's coming along tomorrow and doing a live DDoS attack and is saying that he can't be DDoSed. It's a ridiculous thing to say. But anyway, good luck to him. We do a lot of code reviews. We have security-specific code reviews. We have, we kind of go to town. The thing we worry more about is the kind of social engineering, phishing, people getting hold of because it doesn't matter how secure your software is. If someone can get into your cloud environments or something, you've had it. So we do a lot of kind of elevated permissions. You can only get elevated permissions for a brief period and things like that. So we take these things pretty seriously.
Next question, maybe over there. Yeah.
Hey, I'm interested more in what's your advantage versus normal payments done by, for example, bank POS, or what's your selling point?
So against the kind of what we term incumbent bank, the kind of key things that we sell upon are transaction speed. So typically a payment terminal will do a lot of processing actually on the device itself, do a lot of string manipulation, lots of stuff that takes a lot of time. We don't do that at all. We just lift the card number through the NFC. We encrypt it using DuckPut, the single transaction encryption, and then we throw it at either AWS or Google Cloud. And any of the processing happens there, and we go straight into Visa or MasterCard or American Express's endpoints. So the actual Visa in the UK, on average, authorized in 100 milliseconds. It's pretty amazing. When we hit their endpoint, we get a response in 100 milliseconds. And we try and put as little additional latency on top of that. Our end-to-end from a terminal, obviously we're dependent on customers' networks, is around 800 milliseconds, where the average is closer to 2 seconds. Some of them 3, 4, 5 seconds. It's a big deal if you're a coffee shop or one of these people that have quick turnarounds. You go beep, it just says approved, as opposed to beep, spin, 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 spin. The settlement time is massive. To a small business, cash flow is really important. So if you can provide them all their money within a few hours every day, and they all work weekends, they want money at weekends, is a big deal as well.
And it's not just the technical side, right? You did also some deals with banks where you pre-fund, because it's not, the banks will still pay.
Yeah, we still get paid later. We're always like quite a lot in debt.
So you have a credit line, I think, with a bank.
Yeah.
That you basically pay out to the merchant, and they get paid later. That's what I understand. Right?
So it's not traditional merchant acquiring.
Yeah.
Traditional merchant acquiring, you get paid by the card schemes and then you'll pay it out. Sometimes people get multiple payments because international cards will get paid later by the card schemes. Even stupid stuff like the UX on the terminal. You look at sort of traditional terminals and they're written by some sweaty, stereotypical geek in a cupboard somewhere. And even the card holder, you should be able to use it without any training, obviously. I was paying for some Stella that says something about me in a boozer. I tapped my card and it said registering token. I just thought, why do I need to know anything about tokens? I want to drink high-strength lager. And it's like that kind of thing. But there's things for the actual staff that work there. And again, due to our beloved Brexit, particularly hospitality places have huge turnover of staff. They'll be there for a few weeks and then replaced. So they've got no time to train these systems, but ours are actually usable by human beings because we actually put some thought into what runs on there, as opposed to treating it like they're all the same, who cares? It kind of goes on. We just solve stupid stuff. I mentioned PCI, we just make it trivial, but also super secure. And so we didn't do anything miraculous. We took all those stupid things. So bank POSs, you say they're not like that, they're the old school. They're all the same. And that's why we outsell them 10 to 1, is because we've solved those everyday problems that they couldn't be bothered. And now they're stuck because it will take them years.
Any more questions in the back over there? Do you just want to say it? Because we're...
Quick. Thank you. Do you have any plans to leverage the faster payment infrastructure in UK, or are you only based on card payment?
Well, we use faster payments every day to settle to our customers. So that's the infrastructure, that's how we can pay so quickly. The old school BACS payments are 3 working days. So it's expensive, but again, it's customer, it's what they want. But in terms of account to account using faster payments through the open banking layer, if that's what you mean, We have a prototype running on card machines where you can go through a bank to bank through a QR code authorizing the payment on the cardholder's phone. It's as good as we can get, but it's still nowhere like as slick as presenting Apple Pay or a physical card. It works well in very high ticket sales. So people doing deposits on a car, for example, they don't want to pay the rates on cards. So we're looking at that kind of thing, but it's not slick enough to compete with the contactless payments to, I think, take over in any great numbers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Maybe, I hope you've seen, Nick is an awesome CTO, and Nick is
Oh,
hiring.
yeah. Please, I meant to say, there's one thing I said I had to say. Yeah, so we've grown the team from about 100 to 450 over the last 3 years, and we're growing very, very quickly. So if anybody fancies a job in London, it is all based in London. We hire lots of people. We've got 48 different nations working in our business, about 1,000 people. And so we welcome everyone. We'll sort out visas, whatever is required. So
Just
hit me up
seek him
on
out
LinkedIn.
afterwards.
Yeah, thanks for the reminder.
You
Cheers.
can network. Thank you so much,
you.
Andras and Naik.